The Judeo-Christian Bible is about the most powerful subliminal tool in the history of humanity. It's subliminal, and it works on the mind, the subconscious mind. In addition to that, it's infused with a lot of occult energy and power to make it believable and credible, and also to incite fear. Those who are responsible for the removal of knowledge and replacing this knowledge with a book of meaningless drivel and bullshit are masters of psychology. Those of you who have gone to college, or maybe even, I don't know if they teach this in high school, I learned this in college about Ivan Pavlov, the Russian scientist, and the theory of conditioning. And for any of you, just think about this for a second, but take a certain scent, like a perfume or some kind of a scent. And when you smell that scent, by random or whatever, 9 times out of 10, it's going to evoke some very powerful association or memories for you. And the same thing was done with the dogs, where the dog salivated when it expected food every time it heard a bell. And this is the theory of conditioning, and this has been used in the Judeo-Christian Bible, and it's also really been exploited in the media. Satan, his demons that are the original gods, the powers of the mind, bioelectricity, seances, communication with the dead, all of these have been the themes of horror movies. Now, whether or not you as an individual, find any entertainment or suspense in a lot of these horror movies, now don't get me wrong, I love horror movies. It's always been my favorite genre. Even since I was a little girl, I used to watch them very, very young. But the themes of these, okay, and another thing you must realize is years ago, okay, I'm 44 years old, and I've seen a lot, for you that are younger, you're desensitized in a lot of areas because you've been exposed to so much. But previous generations who weren't exposed would actually get scared by watching a lot of these movies, especially little kids. I remember when I was a little kid, I'd get scared watching Frankenstein, 4 or 5 years old, type of thing. Well, the point here is you take like the Frankenstein movie, is the use of the bioelectricity. Okay? Now the bioelectricity is Kundalini. And so you have an association there. A monster created using bioelectricity runs amok and murders a bunch of innocent people, has the town pulling their hair out and brings all kinds of disaster on its creator. Okay? The Exorcist. Now that was very, very powerful subliminal movie. And I know there's some of you that sit and laugh about it. Yeah, I see it as a joke now that I understand it, and it never frightened me. Okay, I saw it when I was 14 years old. But the reviews that this movie got, The Exorcist, with Linda Blair and Ellen Burstyn back in 1973, in the Star and Tribune newspaper in Minneapolis, there's a man, after he saw that movie, was driving up 7th Street the wrong way, and all of a sudden Satan became synonymous with possession. And the subliminal messages within this movie, when the 12-year-old possessed Reagan came tumbling down the stairs in a back bridge, where you put your hands and your feet on the floor like a gymnastics maneuver, and it's also known as the wheel or the bridge in yoga, and the blood running from her mouth. This was a very powerful subliminal message against yoga, primarily the yogic cities, which are the powers. And in the Eastern religions, what they try to do, they're Christianized, like Buddhism and that. What they try to do, they try to distract and prevent you from using these powers in pursuit of samadhi and enlightenment. Okay, they don't want you to use your powers. And the levitation scene in The Exorcist, when she was levitating, there's a lot of monks that in Tibet and years ago that could levitate. This has to do with the lightness of the heart chakra and the feather and the balance with the Egyptian goddess Mat. And that's what that stands for, is the levitivity. And the success and the power of the human soul, and how they can overcome the cycle of reincarnation and reincarnate into a god and have godlike power. So basically, you've got a bunch of people, sheep or whatever, and there's even others who are very frightened by the Exorcist movie. And since you've got the levitation, the contortion, and everything in there, which is against yoga, there's an association created there within the mind, even if someone's not aware of it. Another movie is Carrie, about this girl who was viciously abused by a Christian mother. And she had the powers of telekinesis, which is moving objects with their mind. The message within the movie was, you can't get away from Christ, and using these powers will end you in disaster, which is what happened. She died in the end. Night Monster. It's 1943. It's a good movie. And this was another movie about using the powers of yoga. And, of course, the murders followed, horror and gore, and the movie ended in disaster for the person who used these powers. There's many more other movies. The mummy movies with the Egyptian high priest. He always winds up failing. And the message here, the most powerful subliminal message here with all of this is, don't use your powers. Stay away from bioelectricity. Stay away from Satan. When I was in the Hollywood video several years back, I noticed a movie named Dagon. Dagon is the goetic demon named Zagan, and I met him and worked with him. And they have him portrayed as a hideous monster. Now, all of this is creating, whether or not a person's aware of it, it's creating a connection in the subconscious mind, the mass mind. And when something is created within the mass mind, even though you've got a bunch of adults that have never meditated in their entire life, it forms an energy. Because I'm talking about numbers here. And the Bible's the same thing. It's all subliminal. The numbers, everything. It's in the mass mind. It goes back centuries. Racial consciousness. And it's important to realize how this sort of thing is being manipulated. It's nothing more than a hoax and a scam. Now, I'm not putting down horror movies. I love horror movies, okay? But I'm talking about a lot of them have an underlying theme and a powerful subliminal message to keep humanity enslaved. And it's important to recognize that, because once you're aware of it, it no longer has any effect on you. Hail Satan.